Most people want to try to make it all the way to retirement and hopefully through retirement without any. I hope that most people do. However, there is a chance that one ends up on disability or having some sort of disabling or there's many things that could cause one to be able to or be unable to work and provide for their family. And so disability insurance, a financial plan. Many people don't want to think about what happens if something happens to them, whether they pass away or become unable to work because of some sort of disability. Nonetheless, I think it's an important thing to consider. Let me share a story about a client that I met. She was a fairly successful income standpoint. She was really doing quite well for herself financially. From an income perspective, she actually worked at Disney and had a VP level, really good income. Some of that was from salary, some of that was from bonuses, and some from stock compensation as well. And then contracting a disease, an autoimmune disease, which basically prevented her from being able to walk around, started to impact her cognitively as well, and go on disability. Thankfully, the company did provide disability insurance for her, but oftentimes insurance to pay roughly 60% of one's income, but there may be some limitations to that. And so she was able to at least have a decent income for 2 years. But then after that, she went basically had to go on to the Social Security disability program, which is quite challenging. And so I share that story because it does happen. It happens probably more than you think. If you do some Google searches, of course, all of the people will make it sound like pretty much everybody's going to get disabled at some point in time. And obviously, we know that that's not the case. It's kind of hard to nail down those numbers because they're not necessarily numbers in a consistent and balanced way. But nonetheless, I was able to find some information. It says that it says roughly 1 in 4 Americans lives with some sort of disability. Now that doesn't mean that they're unable to work. Obviously, we know many friends and family that are able to have impairment or what have you. But nonetheless, there's sometimes you can sustain an injury or some sort of disease that it impairs you from being able to work. And so some of those options and some of those considerations when you are looking at disability insurance, especially now since it is open enrollment time frame, we're getting close to that. And this can be something that people overlook because they think, oh, I'm healthy, I'm not going to need it, or my health insurance may cover it, but health insurance does not cover replacing your income. They'll certainly pay you or need medical care, but health insurance is not going to give you income while you're waiting to receive that medical care, especially if it's ongoing. So a few and these are generally offered through the employer, but you may want to consider even looking outside of your employer depending on your situation and all of that. So the first one is short-term disability, typically up to 90 days. A lot of times people will have that in place just in case they have some sort of sustain some sort of injury and need to go on medical leave, and that will work 90 days. After that, then you would go on to what's called long-term disability. Long-term disability is going to cover you after that. Usually there's some sort of waiting period, just like the Walt Disney Company has disability insurance, and that's generally a 90-day waiting period. And then after that, they'll replace your income up to 60% your base salary. Now, if you are an individual that's compensated with bonuses and LTI, maybe RSUs, other sort of compensation at the Disney company, then not be included in those calculations. And so whenever you purchase that long-term disability, it's going to cover only your And depending on your role, that may or may not be a big portion of your overall income. And also, it's only going to cover you for 2 years with your own occupation cover for any occupation. So let's go through the differences between your own occupation of disability insurance and any occupation of disability insurance. Your own insurance, that basically means it's going to cover your specific type of work. So if you're in an office environment, you need to be able to type and get to and from the office typically, or be able to log into the computer or what have you. Those are all things that maybe are specific to your job. And so occupation insurance would cover you for 2 years, and it basically replaces your salary, 60% of your salary for 2 years. Going to that 2 year period, then it basically covers you for any occupation. So what that means is you would basically be unable to do any kind of work at all to those disability insurance benefits. So that's a much harder hurdle to meet, to have some sort of sustained injuries or sustained sickness or what have you. You then maybe would need to go back to work because your benefits from work would stop. And the last sort of disability insurance is that is a system there that's paid by the federal government. The statistics, don't quote me on this is not a specific number, but I want to say upwards of 90% for Social Security disability are denied, at least in the first time around, and then they go back in and apply again. So it's very challenging to get Social Security disability, but that is there if you end up needing disability insurance. So what do you do then? So the risk of disability, I think, is real, and it is good to protect against that, because whenever you buy disability insurance, you're basically taking the onus of you of having enough money saved to be able to provide for yourself, maybe your family, if you were, and you're putting that on the shoulders of an insurance company, which they basically have run the numbers and they have a lot more money than you do, right? And so they can afford to take the risk, where most people working not earning a paycheck anymore, especially if they're a decent way away from retirement, maybe 10 years or more, 5 years or more even, because they're expecting to be able to plans and save and invest and all that. It just takes time to have enough money to be able to replace your income. So whenever you're looking at your benefits, if you're a Disney cast member or a Disney employee, your benefits, and you're during open enrollment period, and you're looking at long-term disability or disability options, short-term disability, if you don't have an emergency fund, and it's also typically not too expensive. So if it's something that would make you feel better of having it to cover you for that 3-month period or 90 days, yeah, that's fine. Long-term disability insurance as well, so that you can be covered at least for the 2 years of your own occupation should you become disabled. And then some years after, if you have some sort of serious disability that prevents you from being able to work. But then also a lot of times people may look at an alternative individual insurance policy to be paired with your group insurance. If you are eligible for group insurance, the individual policy has to be paired with that. But those especially, something especially good if you have bonus and RSU income that is going to be on top of what your base salary is, so that you could be compensated for that should you be unable to work. And generally, I suggest working through an insurance agent that is also able to look at multiple different companies and give you the best price based on your situation. And they usually know the ins and outs of those details. I'm not an insurance, but being a financial planner, insurance is certainly a big part of the overall plan to protect against risks that we really don't want to think about, but they happen. So I hope you found value in understanding how disability insurance works and what it covers, and some things to think about there. My name is Kyle Newell. I'm a fee-only financial Winter Garden, Florida. I serve clients face-to-face in the greater Orlando, Central Florida area, and I can meet with clients virtually all over the U.S. via Zoom. Feel free to drop a comment or send me a message, send me an email. You can schedule time directly on my website for us to have a little intro call. There's no cost for that intro meeting. And of course, there's no specific recommendations given here. You want to evaluate all this with your own financial planner, financial advisor, or tax advisor, your own insurance agent to make sure you understand the coverages, a high level overview of what those are. And, again, no specific recommendations since it's just a video. But again, my name is Kyle Newell, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and feel free to questions. Take good care.